discussing that at Parliament tonight? He does that awfully well. Somebody left from the outside. He's not going to leave, is he? I seriously thank you for your very kind reception, and I would like to tell you that I am delighted indeed to be here, and I would like to let you know that... Can you hear me all right? Fine. I would like you to know that I am here from... to be here. The only set thing that I do in terms of a lecture is that I say the things I'm saying now as part of a pattern. They are not ad-lib. In that I will not stand here and lecture any group, but I will talk with them and converse with them and make not a question and answer situation, as it were, but just a communication session on the kidney condition of this man. If you are getting something out of this, and if you're having pleasure from it, I shall be here. If there isn't any pleasure, I'm sure I'll know by the backs that will be walking that way. So if you would like to start by just asking me the beginning question, the first question, or the first hello, or whatever, usually sparks... Hi. Son of a gun. It usually sparks the entire discussion. And we can get into anything. There are no verbotens. There's anything you want to talk about, I'll talk about with you. There are things I'm sure that you're curious about if you are creative people. I'm sure there are those of you that are here tonight that are somewhat curious and not as creative as I wished you would be, but we'll find them out quick enough. So if someone would like to start, it would make it really good. And it usually takes a moment or two for people. Well, you're going to go, Jess? No, I think you better go. What are you going to say? I don't know. What the hell are you going to say? Let it be sure that we have people here. I beg your pardon? You have a question. Would you mind if I got through talking? Go right ahead. Speak up.
What's your real name?
It is now. It wasn't when I was born. I was born Joseph V-I-T-C-H. And I have some other bits of information that'll choke you up. I'm sure you're not about to come back with, why did you change it? I'm laughing because I spelled it right. Yes, sir.
You're smoking French cigarettes as a thank you to Cahiers du Cinema.
No, I'm smoking French cigarettes because I read that they have a 3% lower cancer rate. And they stink. But they taste okay knowing that I'm safe. 3% worth. How'd you know I was smoking? Huh?
Why don't you store the pipe?
Son of a gun. You see, you never know when you're going to pick up. How much success do I owe to luck? I think there's a lot of luck involved, that's for sure, but I wouldn't know how much. I think you have to know how to do something also. You ain't going to throw dice and wind up a movie star. There's got to be a degree of luck involved. Be in the right place at the right time, maybe? I don't know. You've heard about that. I don't know if that's right or wrong. But you can't just wait for luck. You got to push a little bit, too. Wish a little bit and drive a little bit.
What does your opinion say on the narcotic issue? I mean, specifically, do you agree with what appears to be the national middle-class consensus opinion against all drugs?
Well, let me just say that I am not terribly impressed with any group opinion, for one. Two, I'm not thrilled with Gallup polls or any organization that says there are 27 ifs, 307 and 2,000 I have my own opinions, and I don't think that's the kind of an issue that's really terribly important here. You can talk to a half a dozen men that come here.
It is valuable. I'm just interested in your opinion.
Well, my opinion is that if you need narcotics and you can go into a drugstore with a prescription and be assisted and be helped, I think that's marvelous. I also think that it's marvelous that you can go off the street into a betting room and it's legal to place a bet on a horse. I think that's marvelous. I think it's safe. I have opinions about an awful lot of things that I think that should be licensed because it just prevents an awful lot of crud. To have crud along with licensing, at least it's that much less crud. Where do you want to meet? Well, let's discuss it further because you seem a little dissatisfied. That's all I said about it.
Yeah, well, I suspect, since you haven't answered any further, your knowledge is very great, so I'm going to push it.
Push it, I'll have more knowledge. Yes, sir.
Have you ever had any trouble with film censorship?
With my pictures? Not yet, no. No. And I think that's another one of those things that I don't like, film censorship. But censorship of all kinds is wrong. Anyone that I haven't heard from that we have neglected to talk to, please feel free, I'm here. I'll talk about anything that I don't know about. What?
Not much about the underground movies that have been...
No, I only know that they're making them. I haven't seen any. I haven't seen any. I know one of them runs 8 hours.
You don't know anything about the attitudes that these people have?
The attitudes? I did a lecture at UCLA one night, and I saw a group that were making an underground film. But I'm not about to presume that's what they're all like. But these were real beauts. There was one amoeba, female impersonator, and a Spanish fly fag that was licking something on the floor. You never see anything like it in your life.
Is that Chopper Club?
Huh?
Is that a film called Chopper Club?
All I know is that they were underground filmmakers, see, and they challenged me. They weren't very happy with my terribly straightforwardness. My Abe Lincoln celluloid, they called it. So I told him when I had as little talent, I'd go underground, you know. Yes, sir.
What actually happened in Cannes this year? when you gave this press discussion about Chaplin, we only read a little bit about it, but clearly you blew up at the press by knocking content.
Yeah, I blew up at the press. I always blow up at them.
But why in this particular instance? Can you elaborate on why?
Well, I can elaborate. I just think that I have feelings about something, and I have to say it. That's all. And I was getting a little tired of everybody hitting me with, what did you think of the Countess from Hong Kong? Just waiting, hoping he'll chew it apart. The next one we meet, what did you think of it? He'll cut it up. And it was bothering me. It had only been projected to me 2 or 3 times. But I had to assume that this is being done constantly with people. And I had enough of it. And I read them off, the whole 200 of them. And I told them what I thought of their question, and I told them what I thought of what they should have done in regard to just good taste, if nothing else, just good manners, or if nothing else, just a pat on the head to everyone that makes a contribution. He's entitled to it, forgetting the financial structure. Because every man like Chaplin that we have had, and haven't been that many, gives just a little bit more than you can ever pay for. And if it weren't for Chaplin, we wouldn't be in the industry we're in today. He was one of the forerunners, and he did an awful lot of marvelous things.
But do you think they do reserve the right to film as a drag? It was a
Yes, they reserve the right, except I reserve the right to tell them there are rights that they're reserving that they shouldn't.
You mean, in fact,
If you did something and you made a mark for someone somewhere, you're entitled to something. And I just get a little sick and tired of everybody being so goddamn pompous about everything and so goddamn perfect with their rules and regulations that they're just not living their lives. And I'm not an agent, because if I'm in that group, I may catch it. And the only anecdote I know to it is to say what I believe. And I said to the press, you could have not knocked his brains out so much. You could have remembered what he's done. You could have remembered he's 78 years old. You could have remembered, if nothing else, he had the courage to get in the arena, which is more than some of the great mental giants today of 40 years old are doing, and won't do it until they know they got a 7-11 role. He had the courage of his convictions, and he's thing. And he's entitled to a pat on the head. Well done, if not good, at least well done.
Yeah, but hasn't he been given hundreds?
Look, if I'm doing nothing more than getting even in Cannes for what I know one day I won't be able to say about me, then does that answer it? If everybody stuck to the issues, we wouldn't have problems, would we? Nobody does. Next. What is it?
The most outrageous publicity stunt you've ever been involved in.
You're watching it.
You do much work on television?
Yeah, I fixed 3 sets yesterday.
Do you appear much?
Yes, I'm doing my own show on NBC this fall. No,
You don't? Any questions?
but I did a show a couple of years ago that wasn't very successful, and I want to get even. That's why.
How did you get your first creative film?
I lived. Oh, in films? Oh, I thought it ended at how'd you get your first break? Well, I was at the Copacabana in New York when I had the Italian boy working for me. And Hal Wallace, the producer, seen us at the Copa and signed us to a contract. 1947. And the rest is dynamic history. Anybody, sir, ma'am? Please speak up if you will. I promise I won't be quite as hostile as I was with Mutt and Jeff.
People laugh at you when you were a kid.
I beg your pardon?
People laugh at you when you were a kid, when you were...
Did they laugh at me when I was a kid? Yes, very much so.
At you or with you?
Huh?
At you or with you?
At me or with me? Well, at the time that the young reference to, I don't think that I was capable of understanding either. Moreover, it wasn't important as long as I was the center of attention.
When did you decide you wanted to direct as well as act in movies?
I think subconsciously I always wanted to, but consciously I wasn't aware of it until after I had had the unfortunate experience of dealing with those that I believed to be less than competent. And I learned my craft a little more, for self-preservation, if nothing else.
Not from behind the camera.
I beg your pardon?
You mean from the floor, as an actor? You wanted to learn the craft?
Yes, I believed it was important, and I still believe it's vitally important that an actor should know what he is embraced by. The technology of the business is vitally important. As most people say, or as most directors will tell you, they want you to stay away from their racket. They will tell you it's best you just concentrate on your lines and be an actor or an actress. And I defend that position. I say no. I say that's wrong. You can still, if you're a good enough performer, you can perform and still know what's happening around you to protect yourself. Right from the very beginning, the very first day that I saw a camera. But then I ran into some very, very sticky situations where I found I had best protection. And then I decided to put what information I had gathered to use. And I have been just marvelous.
You won't get... I'll be a monkey's uncle.
How and when did you start your sort of...
I think it was in the maternity ward.
I'm safe! Oh, I'm safe. Oh, I'm so glad I'm safe. You don't know what I've gone through.
The character came to me easily because I think it was myself. And there's nothing easier than playing yourself, or an extension of myself. But it isn't something that I could honestly stand here and submit to you that I created. and said, aha, this will be the device. The device was there and told me that was it.
Yeah, but I think there are some characters which might become funny because in a certain extent they might be in a relation of superiority with the others, as well as I understand your character as in a certain way being in a sort of inferiority in relation to the others. Basically, I regard your character as someone who is a little shy, who is basically good, but is perhaps simple or
I understood you up until the time you said, I think I know what you mean, at the beginning. The middle, you lost me, and at the end, I got all mixed up altogether. If you are asking me to identify the character, if you're asking me, is the character this subservient character, or subordinate to the needs of others, etc., he is the underdog, if that's the word that might sum up all of what you said. He has to be, because he understands that, and it's real. And for the same reason that we don't throw a snowball at a gray felt hat, and we always throw it at a black top hat. That's the purpose in approaching the characters we do. He has to be that way, because he's everybody. And the heavy in the piece, who is usually the bank president that won't give your mother the mortgage again on the house, there are only a few of them, and we're not playing to them. Moreover, we need that few of them for people to understand that's who we're knocking. And in comedy, you must have a menacing factor.
When you decide on an idea for a film, do you work out a whole series of jokes, especially for a particular storyline, or do you have a lot of things that occur to you, things which could be terrific for a movie, and then write a story around them, or both?
No, you start with a theme, with a fine line thread that we call it. A fine line thread, that's all you need. You need a concept. And from that you're sparked. And then when you do write one visual joke, God bless you, when you write one visual joke or one good visual concept, it will become a contagion in your writing. You will sit at the typewriter and you will be putting what you believe to be a good visual joke on paper. And you can't wait to get through with that one because it's just sparked you for the next episode, etc. So it really develops itself once you get that theme and that thread. But to just blatantly shoot material, pieces, and try to put them together, you hope it looks that way in the end result so that people wonder, did they rehearse that or didn't they? Because that's a high compliment. You really have to work desperately and awfully hard at rehearsing what should appear to be spontaneous. If I haven't answered your question, it was fun talking to you.
You have to you find yourself doing a lot of research for the characters you play, or when you play a new film, or do you sort of just go on intuitively what you know already?
Well, there's very little research to be done except if you're doing something, period, or if you're doing something dealing with, like, for example, in Jekyll and Hyde, I had to find out some awfully important medical details.
Any sort of jokes out of things like that you might come across, because it's the sort of thing you're playing like medical?
Well, you find great humor in everything. And if you can pick up on it, and if it's there for you, and you see it, and if you can dig in optically and intuitively, and then be able to apply it to what you're doing, that's magic. Sometimes it doesn't happen. But when it does, you're very lucky and very fortunate. There are things that'll come out of this thing tonight that'll leak into your mind while you're writing, and you won't know where it came from, really, but there'll be something that relates to a comic inference, as it were, and it's there on the paper, and you try to remember where it come from. So intuitive is really the big key, I think. Yes, Richard, speak.
How much of you is buddy love?
Well, I wouldn't like to think any of me is buddy love, but I'm sure there's a great degree of it there.
No,
Like,
some kind of schizophrenic aspect.
not any more than yours. I think that somewhere along the line someone decided that we should have a word for a double personality, and they decided schizophrenic sounds terribly medical. Let's use that, because it beats the hell out of mechanic. Mechanic, you know, relates to cars, so they said schizophrenic. Everybody has it. There aren't those that are introspective enough to trust their inner feelings and decide, yes, that's me, And there isn't anyone in this room, I'm sorry to say, or I don't know that it's marvelous to say, isn't double-faceted from the standpoint of personality. Because if anyone wants to stand up and tell me that they're kind, generous, warm, without nasty, evil, angry, they're liars. And I just didn't realize that I was not ashamed of the admissions in my writing. I didn't know it until it was over. But when I saw what I knew about, I didn't know that from hearing it. I had to live there. But I'm much cuter than I am nasty most of the time. Did I lose you with that, Richard?
No.
Okay.
When you're directing, do you find it hard to be critical of your own performance?
No, I don't find it difficult at all. I find that I was fortunate in that objectivity is the secret. I didn't know that I had it. I think a man finds that out once he gets started.
Yeah, but surely if you're too objective, you won't get in when you're playing the part. You won't play it spontaneously enough when you're doing takes and things.
I'm never objective when I'm performing. I'm
That
only...
means you have a very sudden switch, doesn't it? Because if you're directing, you're trying to line things up, all right? And then when you get ready to do a take, and you've got to go and change into the part, you can find that sometimes a little difficult.
No, I find that very rewarding and very satisfying, because when the conversion takes place, the role of the director, as you know, is a very, very responsible one, and a very trying one, a very difficult job. It's rougher than anyone can imagine, because you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. Moreover, you have a couple of dozen actors that need you as papa and mama, and kiss them and hug them and breastfeed them and everything else, and it's very trying. Now, when I have the opportunity to go from behind that camera, carrying the responsibilities, the obligations, the commitments, the integrity, and everything else involved, it's so wonderful to get in front of the camera because nobody bothers you. Because you, who's going to annoy him? It's such a relief to be able to do that, that's the only concentration that I have at that time. But I take a great deal of time before I make that move to be sure that everything is technically locked and everything is secure on this side before I make the conversion. Then the objectivity takes place in the cutting room. If he's not funny, I cut him out. If he's funny, I like
When you're actually doing a take, ever tell whether your performance is what you wanted?
because nobody knows better than the performer if you are telling yourself the truth. I know when I'm funny, and I know when I'm not. And that's why I don't need people around to say you did very well. I don't want them around to tell me I did very well, because I know it as I do it. And I certainly don't want them around to sob with me when I do very badly, because as I bomb, I can hear the noise.
Are you pretty sure of that, are you?
Quite sure. I'm equally as sure of the answers as you are of the questions. I didn't mean to be facetious, except that I'm not about to break down my confidence no matter what you say. I have crossed myself on occasion, but I won't tell you about those times. Yes, sir. Did you raise your hand or no? Yes, speak. Anybody, please. Yes, sir.
Yes, right.
Wonderful.
I just said you're a funny bloke, make a lot of people laugh, probably, and all this, but are you a happy bloke as well? You know, I'm sorry to say.
That's a very good question, and I left myself open for it because I did say you can ask me anything. I don't know that I am happy in the literal sense of the word. I think I am. I don't think that I know what complete happiness is, because if I did, I wouldn't have to come here tonight hoping you would all like me. The day I don't have to do this, I guess that's happiness, but that's also loneliness. Yes, sir. Ma'am, I'm sorry. Yes?
Do you think happiness has to do with being liked?
I beg your pardon?
Do you think happiness has to do with being liked?
I really don't know. I don't think I'm qualified to answer that. I think happiness is today, this moment. I don't know that we can apply this moment of happiness to 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I don't really know what the answer is. I think you have to find your happiness, and I don't think there's such a thing as a pattern. Well, now we have found it, let's follow that, because that's secure happiness for the rest of our lives. Well, that's wrong, because there's a lot of people on the perimeter that are not about to allow us to formulate a pattern of happiness. They're going to screw us up somewhere. You know, Ho Chi Minh, the UN, all those cats. They don't want you to find a... That's it. It's spoiled. There's an imbalance that way. The way they got it now is marvelous, where we can all just shake a little. What's happening next? I really don't know. I have to, even if I had the answer in terms of myself, it wouldn't relate to you. You would have to find your own. And I'm sure you will. Please understand that anything that relates to other than what I do know about, I would like you to know they are strictly my opinions, and that I don't stand here before you hoping that you will believe I know about everything. I don't. I know a lot about most of everything. I think you can make yourself sound like you know everything, but the truth of the matter is I know my racket, I know my business, I know what I do. But in terms of anything else, they are just opinions no different than yours. And there's a danger there that people, I just never want people to believe I'm making a statement and it's a statement of... Yes, anyone? Please feel free to open up and you'll see it'll get going if you're not uncomfortable.
Film, you know, when you're walking in your pocket to turn you back into Buddy Love, when you're going off with the girl at the end of the movie.
He never turned back to Buddy Love.
No, but
He's got the chemicals because he wants... Maybe he's...
turning back.
No. I'll show it to you again if you like.
Well, I think a few times.
Well, this time I can sit with you and explain it. If you got that from the finish, then we succeeded. If you got anything from it, we succeeded. The important thing in that particular instance, it's not spelled out for an audience and you wondering, then I have succeeded. If that's what you thought, then you must think that. Really, that's the important thing. Yes, sir?
What film did you most enjoy making?
The Nutty Professor, I think. It was a labor of love. It was many, many years put into that. I had written that 10 years before I started shooting it. And I really dreamed about doing the film, and I put everything I had into it. It wasn't the best film ever made, but for me, it was my best.
So just in line characters.
Well, it's a marvelous comic device, and it had never been done from what I was told, and I was delighted that you could take something as important in our literature and not literally smack it in the mouth or in any way disfigure it, as it were. No, and have it work, which was marvelous. It's nothing more than the schizophrenic, but you had to put a handle on it and a title. And I utilized all the information I had from the film that I had seen the great Spencer Tracy do. I carried it for a lot of years. Yes, sir?
Don't you think that the Mr. Hyde character, Professor, could compete with Robert Hudson?
No, I don't think so. No. This is I don't know. There are some people that saw some positive aspects of that character, and I never could understand that. No, I spoke of feminine, not masculine. Guys will like the character, and you don't have to question why they liked it, because he was an outspoken, virile, there but for the grace of God go I character. It's okay. Guys will like him, because everyone would like to walk stupid, punching him in the mouth for no reason. But women had other things in mind. Yes? Yes?
How come at the end of the Nutty Professor, when the professor goes onto the stage, Buddy Love becomes a professor?
Of course, there had to be a statement made. I wanted to say something, and I had to say it. That was the whole reason for the film. That you might well be satisfied with what you are, because you're going to have to live with you the rest of your life. There's no point in trying to be different than what you are.
The whole film was really a serious statement rather than an attempt at comedy.
Well, the greatest attempt at making a serious statement is through comedy. And I think if some of these idiots in politics would try to get a couple of laughs, someone might listen to them. Because it really is a shortcut to getting someone's ear. If you can sneak your statement in and they think you're only being cute, you've done the job. You'll find a lot of people don't want to hear what you have to say, particularly if it tends to get into areas that they prefer not to get into. So comedy is a wonderful device. Yes, sir?
Do you aim at a particular kind of audience?
A full one. Not really. Most people think like audience, and I let them think that if that's what they think.
I tend to find them, for me, they seem to be confused by also things like love interests and platitudinous moralizations, like the one you were speaking to. I'd rather, in fact, you gave us a sort of non-stop comedy. I know it's not easy. I know perhaps that there will be some breaks, but I always find, sometimes when it's like Nutty Professor, better, that the thing falls down because of some kind of love interest, like you were catering for a family, you know, some kind of approach like that. Whereas I would think you're missing all kinds of audience like that, because only half found a picture, only a half a good, you know, humorous picture, and so on. Do you
I agree with what you say in terms of keeping it going, and it is not easy to go hell-bent for leather and straight comedy. The moralities that you don't like, or the statements, or the sentimentality, I find that that is something primarily in Great Britain frowned upon, more than anywhere in the world.
Yeah, I frown upon it because I think it's heavy-handed, you know, and if you aren't going to do that, you can punch it home better, so...
Well, I'll try better next time. I'll work harder at it. But,
you see what I mean?
yes, I see what you mean.
The issue. I mean, you can have a comedy, all right, and it can be sustained laughter to some extent, but it seems to get confused with these things like a love interest. You always have a dame in it, you know, some kind of beautiful broad. I mean, this you have a bunch of ugly voyeurs to come and watch it, all right, but to me it's a drag.
You know, I knew you were going to be here tonight, but I didn't know what you were going to look like. I know what you're talking about, and I respect it, really I do. But I really have an obligation to the overall. I can do the kind of comedy you're in reference to, and it is difficult. I would take a little more time, of course. But there are certain restrictions on your creativity, whether you like it or not. There are certain commitments that you make that doesn't enable you the time, doesn't provide you with the time that it would take to do what you're talking about. Now, we don't lay a love interest in because it takes up 12,500 feet, or it's another 2 reels we don't have to concern ourselves with. There's a very, very important issue involved in the character of the guy that I deal with. Now, Jerry Lewis makes money for me, feeds my family, and he's done very well for me. I have to protect him. The important thing that I have had to handle where he is concerned, from the standpoint of creating a film for him, is to have him grow out of the 19-year-old, emaciated, skinny idiot that was in films from 1948 to a contemporary performing comedian in 1967. Now, in order to do that, it's the same thing, let me put it this way, it's the same reason why Little Orphan Annie is so dull, because she hasn't grown. She's been Little Orphan Annie for 32 years, and the same damn dog just goes arf, you know. Well, I am fighting the constant problem of having growth develop in our character. So by the time he got to be 38 years old, he's having an affair with a chick sometime.
Yeah, you know, I mean...
Is it too sentimental?
It's like if you're going to have, you know, an affair with a chick, then I reckon you ought to make it, you know, lots more laughs.
What the hell's so funny about having an affair with a chick? Unless you want to introduce me to the chicks you've been having affairs with. Why don't you answer my question? Is it too sentimental for you?
No, I think it's just boring.
Huh?
Boring is the word I use. But it made subconsciously, I may hate sentimentality.
Do you? Consciously?
No, not consciously.
Do you think you could extend your comedy by either just acting or by just directing? And in fact, if you concentrated on one thing, you could really extend what you were doing.
Absolutely.
Because you seem to be in one sort of rut in a load of films, and they're all the same.
That may be very true. As far as directing your talents in one area, yes, you could be much funnier just doing comedy. By spreading yourself too thin, I believe is what you're saying. You can truly destroy one of the important things that are projected on the screen. You might very well, as you say, put yourself in a rut, more or less. But I would much prefer to be in the rut and what I did to get there than to concentrate on the one thing have an art house of 200 people, 30 didn't pay, say, bravo, finally, and no commercial value at the box office from the standpoint of the people, and to be dissatisfied as a human being on top of it, I think I'll stay in the rut. I am just defending my position because you have an opinion, and I respect it.
Accepting death.
Huh? Accepting what?
Death.
What do you mean?
Well, no change.
I beg your pardon?
No change.
No change?
No change.
I understand what you mean. And is that accepting death? No change?
Yes.
I agree with you. Would you like to see no change in 30-foot cuts of 15, 16 films?
Yes. Yes.
And would you then, if I were able to show this to you, would you then come before this group and tell them you might no change?
Yes.
All right. You can make an appointment with me and I'll show you 30 to 50 feet of film of 7 or 8 within the years of 1959 to 1967, and if you can say no change, depending upon what you mean by change, then we'll spit it out and argue about it.
So you don't say you're in a rut?
I beg your pardon?
So you don't say you're in a rut?
For specific people, but for other people, no. Now you have to decide on where you're going. You're going to go with the minority, you're going to go with the people that are buying the tickets.
Well, surely, even in that framework, you've had a fantastic change from film to film. I mean, and you must be aware of it yourself, doing things like Family Jewels, playing umpteen different parts.
Tell him about it. Yes, there's been change. I wouldn't challenge the gentleman if I didn't believe there was.
Well, were you aware of it? Were you aware of the need for a change when you made something like Family Jewels?
No, I wasn't consciously aware of the need for a change, but I am not making films for the cinema examiner. I must do the best I can with what I believe I have to do, and that is to project the best possible material I can at the ticket-buying public. They are not the cinema class. They are not coeur du cinema. They are not the people that examine film from the standpoint of knowing butt cuts as opposed to straight cuts. And there are certain things you must do. I don't choose to be the funniest man at the party in a living room. I'd prefer to get my laughs on stage being paid. So in the living room at a party, I sit quietly in a corner. And because people think I'm kind of dull and I'm not as funny as they thought I'd be, if they want to pay the tariff, I'll get up and entertain.
What do you think of thick humor?
Huh?
The bellboy. What you said? Who?
What happened to him?
I don't know, I just asked that question.
Well, then I'll ask you a question. What the hell is a sig human? Huh? Sig human. What do I think of sick humor? What can I think? You think I love it? Haven't you seen some of these non-change films of mine? No, sick humor is not my cup of tea. I like to do it among 2 or 3 friends and have some laughs with the things that I like to kid about, but not in front of a vast audience. I don't particularly like it. I think it's funny at times in the proper frame of reference. That's the only... Terribly sad that we lost Lenny Bruce to not only eternity, but to sick humor. He would have been a fantastic assist to the world of comedy if he applied his brain to a more normal pattern of thinking. I think it was unfortunate. Yes.
At the end of one movie, you...
Where's the voice coming from? I just hear a voice.
Down here.
Oh, hi. Didn't mean to wake you. Go on.
At the end of one movie, you had all the set closing down and the crew leaving the set and turned the cameras more or less around the other way, to show the studio. Was there any special reason? Did this belong to a thing that you're trying to do about breaking down films or breaking down?
No, I think that you might have read a lot more into that than I meant. All I meant was, every once in a while, it's nice to let an audience know that behind that facade is some real people. That's all. And you can't do that. You have a situation that affords you an opportunity to get into the inner workings of the business, and it's marvelous, from my point of view, because as a kid, I would have been delighted the behind-the-scenes structure of a film that I had just seen, and I think that was my projection. But it didn't relate to breaking down film. I think the majesty of film and the excitement of film is that there is a mystery of it. That's important to keep. I wouldn't want to break that down. Because we are here far, far more advanced, I would say, than the ordinary ticket buyer, and it would be a sham to deprive them of the pleasures they get out of whatever they feel when they go in. No, I don't think we should break it down. I don't try to do that anyhow.
Why do you believe in keeping the myth of the cinema alive?
I beg your pardon?
Why did you say you want to keep the myth of the cinema alive?
What myth are you in reference to?
Well, you were talking about you didn't want people to expose what was going on behind the scenes, so it would be nice to see the technician.
I never said anything about a myth. You said a myth, didn't you?
You did. You implied that. You didn't say it.
Well, if we're going to talk about implying, I can cut your discussion up about 4 times already. No, I said the magic of the film, or the majesty of film. Yes, thank you very much. I've never used the word majesty before, but since I'm here, it sounds... Why do I believe I shouldn't, did you say? Is that... No. I think you have a valid question, and I don't mean to challenge you, but I didn't want you to think that I said the word myth or referred to it as that, because I wouldn't do that. I don't think of it as that. I meant to keep the magic or the majesty of film as it is, and I wouldn't want to break it down. It's important to keep it that way. Now, if your question related to why do I think it's important, for the simple reason that we have a lot more people than we have in this room here tonight, and a lot more people that buy tickets under for a different reason. They buy a ticket because they are really hoping to get caught up into something that will give them some pleasure, whatever that pleasure is and however they derive their pleasure. We cannot prostitute ourselves and deny it, because if we do, we'll break down the whole structure of the film industry. The minute you destroy the perspective of that guy that buys the ticket, then we haven't got a chance. He's got to be able to go in there and get caught up in George and Martha's arguing, or he's got to get caught up in Sound of Music, or he's got to get terribly excited with You Only Live Twice, and get an hour and a half or 2 hours of great pleasure, because he'll come back again. If we destroy what he gets in there, we're in trouble. I hope you understood what I meant. I didn't mean to attack you, really. But when I mean it, you'll know it. Yes, sir. Ma'am.
Stop making films with Dean Martin.
Where's the voice coming from so I can look at the man? Back there? Good radio voice, BBC. This is light broadcasting. Why did I stop making films with him? Because I stopped talking to him. I beg your pardon?
Why did you stop talking to him?
Oh, it was just a series of incidents that happen when 2 people are terribly close and good friends, and a breakdown of communications develops, and it's not unlike a man and a woman that were married that get divorced. They try to live their lives out happily, and they try to do it again another way, learn from their mistakes, etc. But I had a moment with Mr. Martin. I'm very, very grateful for all that he had attributed to my success, but I never ever like to confuse my gratitude with my principles, that's all. And sometimes that's awfully important. Does that answer your question? Good.
And did you like Tashland's direction of you?
Yes. Tashland was one of my teachers. Yeah. Frank is one of the great, great visual directors we have.
What directors would you like to work with now?
None.
None. Always yourself?
As of late, yes.
How about other stars in your movies?
I beg your pardon?
How about other stars in your movies?
If I can get them, I'd love to have them.
Who are the ones you really like working with?
I like working with anyone that's a professional and that's a good performer and that wants to make movies.
To be more specific, who are people you...
Oh, there's got to be 2 or 3 of them. I guess I do sound at this point like a producer. Well, I am. It's very difficult to make films anymore. Everybody wants to sit around their pool. Nobody likes to work.
Where do you draw your parallels for criticism of your own films? Where do you get them from? I mean, criticism surely is essential.
Right here.
Do you not feel that again is going around in a circle and it won't develop?
I have to be satisfied, young man. I have to know that I did the very best I can. I do the very best I know how. I shall continue doing this until the very end.
I was wondering if you had anybody in particular who you really respected.
After me, you mean?
Okay, boys, here's the tempo. 1, 2.
Well, I don't want to keep you all. I can feel that it's time, and you've been very nice, and I hope that after all is said and done, there might have been something here that was said that consider a contribution that I left. If not, we'll try again. And to the gentleman that I might have been too hostile with, I do not apologize, because I said everything I meant. And I'm sure that the gentleman did the same. Thank you for your time, and good night. I know what you mean, and it's almost impossible.
14, take one.
What do I do to relax? Cut films. I mean it. That's my whole bag. Huh?
You go to other people's films.
Yes, I certainly do. Sound of Music is one of the best commercial films I've ever seen. Films like... well, I don't know if you've seen a film Norman Jewison did called The Russians Are Coming. When you talk about The Russians Are Coming, you have to talk about a team effort on an overall basis, but you do have to talk about a one-man job. And Norman Jewison did a one-man job in The Russians Are Coming, I think. It's probably the finest comic film, although it did end with a terrifying sentimentality. It was a marvelous film. It's very hard to select films or retain them. Well, one night I'll be lecturing and they'll ask me questions, I'll remember this. You don't do that, at least I don't. It would help me if you asked me about a film or a director and I could possibly voice an opinion. Yes? Hmm? No, there's a...
And it wasn't at all made for the sort of family. It was made very much from inside.
Well, W.C. Fields was a very, very complex man. My being completely normal, he really and cheap. If you look at him carefully, if you look at him now, you'll see he was very, very sharp. And he really wrote and created tongue-in-cheek films. Some of the things he did were film classics, but I wouldn't compare myself to W.C. Fields. No chance. I have to get a hell of a lot better before I could do that. He's in the same class with 3 or 4 other pretty good men.
But he was doing things from his own heart, wasn't he?
Well, most comic people do. Most good comic people will do most of the things they do from their heart, and that's why they trip every once in a while. They can't be consistently as freak-out funny as people would like them to be because there's an awful lot of themselves involved. You know, it's easy to say, what time's rehearsal, and Sir Laurence Olivier does Hamlet. You don't have to really give that much of Sir Olivier. You just have to learn the words and yell a lot. What a rogue and peasant slave. You don't even have to give it yourself, you know. Not as much.
People that
Harry Langdon, Larry Seaman, Harold Lloyd, Buster Keaton to a degree, because Buster... Jackie Gleason, Alan Arkin. Alan would be the perfect W.C. Fields material man today, I think. He's got that wonderful, droll, slow, punctuating bite that W.C. Fields had, and I never thought of it until he had mentioned Fields, that Alan could be. We have a lot of great, great comic people today.
Why have you come to England with film? You've made most of them in Hollywood.
I've never made a film away from Hollywood.
Why? Is there any particular reason?
Yeah, well, the subject matter was here. The script was here. The material was here. It had to be shot here. And once I accepted the material, I am governed by the particular man that I'm dealing with. In that case, Walter Shenson, a very fine producer, who is my partner in this venture, did agree with me that we would do it his way.
Have you found a lot of differences working here?
Huh?
Have you found there are a lot of differences between working in an English studio and working in an American studio?
Oh, yeah, there are a lot of little annoyances because of your just not being used to it. Nothing at all that's of any consequence, because they are exceptionally dedicated working people. They work awfully hard, and they really want to do a job.
You're talking about English people?
Yeah, yeah. I'm talking about the key people that I am closest to and that I can see most of the day. I can't refer to the electricians up high who I don't see. I don't know what their thinking is. I can't refer to the grips, the gaffers, and the riggers and so on. I'm talking about the key men, your boom pusher and your clap man, and oh, what a dirty bunch, boy. Your follow focus, your second assistant. I'm trying to learn the terms that they use here, which we don't use. They're very hard-working men, and they really care. They're equally as involved with doing the best they possibly can as any technical people I've worked with. I just can't get used to this toy studio I'm working at, that's all. I heard Shepperton was condemned years ago. It's still up, huh?
Did you see Hallelujah in the Hills?
Is he any better? No, I didn't. No. Mm-mm. I'd like to ask a question. Did anyone here see a film called Privilege? Oh, I see. I found that to be very interesting.
And what way?
I'm really looking to get some information about this film and what people thought of it. Because one of my associates, namely my associate producer, who was a very bright man who assisted me in making films, he and I had somewhat of a discussion about this film. And we felt that maybe we were just homesick and we were tired of being on the road and so on. But I take it wasn't accepted, or how do they say, it didn't go down very well. Or did it?
So mixed, yeah.
Mixed. Okay. Huh?
Irresponsible.
Irresponsible?
Last crowd.
As what?
No, I'm just saying what you said.
You know, the way you talk, you're not allowed to mumble. You talk, you got to speak right out. That's it. Anyone? Yes, sir.
You defended Chaplin against the press, yet you say you work for a public. Do you not feel that perhaps the press have got a right when somebody presents something to the public?
You're generalizing.
All right, I'll get more specific.
I'd appreciate it. Huh?
After you, of course, yeah.
Yes, I respect a great many people.
You know, if you turn to anybody in particular for criticism, I think it's valuable. You don't think so?
Yes, I didn't say that I don't. I'm not about to use the press by any manner of means as a guide.
I'm not talking about the rough press.
Huh? What did he say? I didn't hear you. You're not talking about what?
I said film critic.
No, what was it that you said earlier? Because you meant for it to be heard, and since I didn't, give me the respect that I give you to repeat. The rough press? We're not in reference to the rough press. Moreover, I have never ever had anything other than rough press. And there are some very, very marvelous things that were written in regard to other than just films. And if it's written by a guy that I think is a goddamn idiot, but he's written lovely about me, or I should say he's blasted me and I think he's a goddamn idiot, now when he writes a lovely piece about me a week later, he's still a goddamn idiot. He hasn't changed. If I know him to be an idiot, I cannot read what he writes. He can't impress me, patting me on the head or telling me I'm terrible. I have where to go for criticism. First to myself, based on the fact that I don't lie to myself. I like what I see and I print it. And I ship it because I believe in it. And if I'm proven to be wrong, I try to do better next time. On the 11th day, if he's got a migraine and he's a little less than pleasant, you got to figure the 10 days in there somewhere before you spit in his eye. That's all I'm saying. Let's get on to something else.
You said earlier something about it was difficult to get people to work. They were lazy and lying around their pools. Then you said something about that it's a shame because there's an awful lot of good talent knocking about.
Sure.
Are you doing anything about this good talent?
I use new people whenever I can, whenever they apply themselves, whenever they're applicable, I should say. I try. I love to use new talent, new people. But you can't use a new, exciting actor, as it were, to replace a planned production that you have on the boards, and you were planning to do it with Cary Grant. And for whatever the reason, Cary is not about to do the film now. You're trapped with a pre-production leaning towards this man in this film. You're not going to now replace him with some new talent. That's the problem, you see. The other problem is Billy Wilder and I have wanted to do a film together for a long time. Our companies can't get together. We can't monetarily make sense out of a deal. Now we're at the point where we just can't talk anymore. It's senseless because Billy wants to do everything based on his own company. And I have a company that I hope one day to leave to my children so that they're solvent. And I'm sure he's doing the same, and you just can't bend. And that's sad. You know, so you have to use new talent if you can, if it fits, if it's applicable.
How do you contact them?
Huh?
How do you contact them?
Well, they usually contact you. You find them. There's so much that's really undiscovered. It's sad, but you find them. And it's not that often, but we have some marvelous classes in Southern California, in both the colleges, USC and UCLA, and some good people come out of there, some good technical people. Acting, I have a whole different feeling about the Strasberg School and the method actor and things like that. They find their way in, but they don't knock at your door, really. It's hard to say, where did they come from? You know, where did Alan Arkin pop up from? He was scrounging around for years trying to get a job. It happens. You don't think you're going to go, and then you want to, and you know it's worthless. Then you do it just for the crew. But you don't submerge yourself. You never let it stay in there. Oh, I've done some of the most fantastic things that no one has ever seen. Except the crew. Anyone?
You said you were interested in young people when you came here, you know. Well, why is it that Hollywood, to my mind anyway, has never done a film about young people? You know, they're all stereotypes, they're all Hollywood young people.
You never saw Black Boy Jungle?
Well, you know, even that.
I was being facetious. I know what you mean. Well...
And all this Octavian and Beach Boy.
I can't control why they do or how or what. I really don't know. I know that it's stereotyped. There's some marvelous films that have come out of Hollywood. And you're generalizing, too.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You've got to think about, well, films like The Pawnbroker are not stereotyped. You know.
Was The Pawnbroker a Hollywood film?
Well, in essence, it was. I don't believe it was made in Hollywood. Was it? Was Pawnbroker made in Hollywood?
New York.
New York. Well, it's as close as you can get from here.
The thing I was going to say was the New York people seem to be making much more films in contact with younger people, you know, like You're a Big Boy Now.
Yeah, yeah.
And things like that.
Well, you've always had a very, very big battle between New York and Hollywood anyway. And we still have a far better technology in Hollywood than they have in New York. But there's an awful lot of younger people creating product in New York since the merge. You know, we merged both directors' guilds. The Motion Picture Screen Directors Guild merged with the American Federation of Radio and Television Directors. Now, 2 years ago, we had 161 directors in the motion picture industry. We have now 5,006. They all came from radio and television. So there's an awful lot of very young guys that are now enabled to function in film in New York. Fred Coppola. Fred Coppola? Yeah, that's where he came from. Radio and television. But
Do you do much television work?
I beg your pardon?
I'm going to do this young people thing.
Why don't we meet outside, you and I? The what?
Would you ever make a film which you didn't direct, that you sponsored, with younger people?
Mm-hmm, I'm going to, but I'm going to just direct it.
You want to direct?
Yeah.
Could you elaborate and tell us about it?
Well, it's with, I have to wait, because this is a young comedian who's probably the funniest comedian I've ever seen in my life. He's going to need very careful handling, and he's going to need great care. But he's in the Army now. I have to wait till he gets out of the Army.
His name's not Norman Wisdom, is it?
No. Norman's in a very successful show in San Francisco. He was in New York and in San Francisco, and he's very good. Norman Wisdom, young fella, Jesus.
Is this guy in Vietnam? Because if he is, he's not going to be a comedian when he comes out.
No, he's not there yet. No, it's my son. He'll be 22 years old, and he's just fantastic. And he's going to be marvelous in this film. And he's got another 16 months to go. So we're hoping that he'll stay where he is in the States. Anyone? This would be a good time to read the will. Huh?
You said he needs careful handling. How are you assured to handling you're giving will be the right handling?
Because I love him.
Yeah, I know. But I mean...
How do you know? Really?
The fact that you love him, as you said you did, could wreck him.
Yeah, it absolutely could. Not as much as an incompetent could wreck him, that didn't care at all.
Oh, but it comes.
Huh?
Oh, yes. Yes, that's...
We have a small Dr. Spock with us here. In essence, what I meant... Huh? Beats the hell out of me. What I meant by careful handling primarily was that I know what he wants to do, and I know of his comedy prowess, and I don't think he does. He has directed his talents to music, and the careful handling is going to be the conversion from just one facet of performing to the other.
You know, he does want to do this.
Yeah, very much so. But I don't know that he's really sure of how well he can be as funny as I know he can be.
Will it be the same product with different rubbings?
No, he's an individual, and completely an individual.
I mean of you.
No, he's independent of me. He has his own form of humor, and it's quite different, and very good. And it's not in a rut. Kind of fresh, and very good. I think you'll be marvelous. Yes, miss. Speak up.
Well, speaking about that rut that one of the fellows referred to.
Do we have to?
Well, not really. And in actuality, that's not what I was going to ask about. It's just God, you know me. That's not fair. I want to know. I want you to elaborate on what your plans are for the future in terms of what you would like to do with film. So, in other words, to disprove what he implied as the rut?
Well, my plans for the future are to project all of my information from behind the camera and not wait until I am too old to have any vitality.
But you're talking about change and your changes that you're developing. But what about changes in your attitude to film as a medium and your interest in film as a material and the way you make your cuts? And I mean, are you developing any attitude towards the medium which previously you never had?
Yes, you develop new attitudes in the technical aspect because you're trapped by things that you do before. Trapped good and trapped bad. But you always come away from that with a new attitude and a new application, hitting that moviola. And you don't really know what's happening, and you find yourself going for straight cuts. And you find yourself utilizing opticals that you would not normally utilize. And that's only an offshoot of some mistakes that you've made before, or some things that you would have liked to have repaired, and you're taking out that neglect, as it were, then, and doing it now. You really do put your mark or your stamp as a filmmaker on your product, but then again, it's marvelous that some of the things that come about that you really didn't know you were capable of.
You know Godard's films, do you? One of the things was we had a discussion the other day about his films, and one of the things I've noted is that one's never sure of the attitude which is taken to the subject, or the point of view which is being used at the second of looking at the film. It's full of thousands of attitudes and little splits of tiny kind of divisions, and very, very, I thought, if he was a more humorous man, they would be more successful films. I mean, his use of film would be marvelous if it was used by, say, a comedian, perhaps, a more comic person.
Well, don't you think an awful lot of the things that you see weren't even interpreted by him as such? Or don't you think that there's an awful lot of things that you read into film that you yourself, in some cases, have a much better point of view in dealing with that particular thing than the filmmaker? Because an awful lot of things that happen in film, a lot of filmmakers stand up there and say, thank you very much for the high compliment, and he never meant for that to happen. And that happens a great deal. So that when you talk about those thousands of attitudes and those fine lines and shadings and shades of gray.
It's so obvious, like Godard, to confuse you, that you're not just watching a hero, you're watching, and you're listening to Godard talking all the time, and it's supposed to be background.
Have you seen that in all of his film? Or any one specific film?
I don't know. No, I haven't. But have you seen Masculin and Femina?
No.
No. Have you seen Pierre Le Fou? Have you seen...
I saw Montauk Kettle, Pa Kettle out west or something. That was the last thing. I'm very far behind on how current these are. And an awful lot of the foreign films and the art films we do not get as frequently as we'd like to. Because an awful lot of the stuff that we run at the studio or at home because we can't get to a theater. And it's awfully hard to get a lot of that stuff. Anybody want to share a drink?
Why didn't you like working in television? What's wrong for you personally?
I beg your pardon?
You said you didn't like working in television. Would you like to elaborate a little more?
Well, it's just that they're still straining and they're working on a very, very strong commercial basis. Not the same commercial basis that we were in reference to, but in this case they are working, and they have to, because of the economy, on such a level of commercial breakdowns to your show that any time you get something going, you lose your audience, really. That's the only thing. It's a distraction to a comedian particularly. And that's why comedians would really go before anyone else in the media. Because the pace of a comedian really shouldn't ever be tampered with. Because you don't give your audience a chance to get to that high point. So it's the design of the show that we're working on now is such that they will not get in the way. And we hope it works, because it's a different formula. And it has to be that way, so that you never ever leave your audience or cut them at the point where they're really dissatisfied. Because they don't know that they haven't been completely satisfied.
What change in structure are you referring to?
Well, it's going to be a far more episodical concept than anything else. It has to be. So that nothing ties to anything else. So you don't leave your audience hanging and you're now going to continue because you can't.
Special reference to commercial break.
Particularly, yeah. And anything that goes over long, your television audiences become terribly greedy because they have 22 or 24 hours in some cities of television every day. And they just are not going to stay with you if you elongate things. Everything has to be very quick. It's like quick cuts. And it may work. It may not.
In this case, we will videotape.
17, take one.
With your stars and your scripts and everything sort of arranged forward, do you find that they give you very little latitude?
Well, I wouldn't know about it because I don't have to do that, fortunately.
Because you finance all your own movies.
That's right. But if I had to go and say, would you like to make this and I need such and such, they are rigid packages.
Is that through choice you finance your own movies, or because you...
Through choice. It's the only way. You pay a very, very large distribution fee because I'm not a world distribution organization. I have to buy one.
Do they adjust their multiplier, and what difference does it make in a production if you finance your own movies and the multiplier?
Well, it makes a big difference in that when you make a deal to be salaried,
Yeah.
the salary that you are making the deal for literally is in the form of dollars and a cutback in world distribution. But if they finance, they not only get world distribution of 33% of the take, but they also get another 15% of financing.
Yeah.
So before you know it, you got a 50-50 partner.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things you try to keep away from, because there's nothing nicer than not having to answer to anyone when you believe this is the way you want to do something.
There are people who believe that the percentage basis is the wrong basis to work on. I mean, is that...
I'm sure that there are. And there are some people that unfortunately have to lend their talent and their time and their product to a financing situation, whether they like it or not, because they don't have the capital. It always winds up getting to the economy where the stumbling blocks are, unfortunately.
Do you think it's morally right to shove an advert in a film? You know, like I remember in one of your films was suddenly an advert for TWA. I think it was TWA. And I found this a little disturbing, you know.
Well, that's a very, very important advertising structure today. It's become a part of the picture business, and I look for it. Like any filmmaker, we try to make as many tie-ups as we can to exploit the product. And the only defense I have for that, I don't think of it as anything moral. I don't think that it's a demoralizing thing. What I think is, I prefer not to do it, except that we don't have exploitation today as we did 15 years ago. Now, you'd think we do because of television, but on the contrary, television takes the eye of the viewer away from what's happening in theaters. Consequently, anywhere we can get exploitation, that we have product that's there for the audience's consumption, we try to get it. And instead of my charging TWA for that plug X dollars, we charge them nothing. Oh, did you think we were paid for that? No, no, we take no money for that. But what we want in return is, in all their advertising, mention the product. No, there's no interchange of dollars. No, oh, absolutely not. And that's against the law, besides. You can't do that. That's payola, really.
What was it like first time you appeared in front of an audience? Did it work?
Did it work the first time? Well, at 5 years old, you're going to go in with a little sympathy. Well, that was kind of professional. I didn't stop since then. But if you're talking about when it was eat or not, it was kind of scary. It's always scary. Only for the first hour or two.
You practiced a lot.
Oh, yeah. Sure, you practice trying not to be scared anymore.